So, the 2026 NASCAR schedule has finally been revealed. And while NASCAR themselves haven't dropped it yet, Jordan Bianchi of The Athletic, he leaked the 2026 schedule on The Athletic. I'll put a link in the description below to the article. Jordan Bianchi, I met him a couple times. He's a great guy, and he did a lot of work to get this schedule out to the fans early for us. And looking at the schedule as a whole, there's a lot of things that I actually really like, but there's also a couple things that I don't particularly like. So today, we are going to go over the entire 2026 NASCAR schedule. We're going to dive deep into it. I'm going to go in chronological order and see what I like, what I don't like, and what maybe could be improved and things in that nature. So without any further ado, let's dive in. So we're going to start this at the beginning. We're going to go at the beginning of the schedule with the Clash at Bowman Gray, and then we'll end it off with the championship race at Homestead Miami Speedway. Good? Great. Let's dive right in. So like I already mentioned, the Clash at Bowman Gray, we knew this was going to happen. Daytona 500, of course, Atlanta, COTA. This has really been the order that NASCAR has been going for its first three races for. Actually, I think this was only the first year that they did that. Well, in terms of COTA being the third race of the year, not Daytona and Atlanta. That's been around for a few years now. Phoenix as the fourth race of the season. Las Vegas, kind of our mini West Coast swing, with COTA, Phoenix, and of course Las Vegas. Then here is, I don't really want to call it a big change because it's, in my opinion, it's not that big of a change, but the first Darlington race moves to the end of March. Remember, this race is usually in May, around a couple weeks before the AllStar Race and the Coke 600. So this race gets moved up pretty considerably by about a couple of months to race 6 on the schedule. So that's actually pretty interesting. I'm not sure exactly why they made that change. I'm assuming weather is a factor. It's really hot at that time. It's around the summertime in South Carolina. And as someone who just came from South Carolina because I was there for the Cars Tour race at Anderson, yeah, it gets pretty hot over there. I'll admit that. Then Martinsville, that's nothing new. And then we have our first off week. And keep in mind what I just said. First off week. Yes, we have multiple off weeks returning to the Cup Series schedule for the first time in, I believe, a couple years. I don't remember exactly the last time. I'll put something in the video, put something in the text to really confirm when the last time we had an off week was. But then we go to Bristol Motor Speedway. Then we go to Kansas, Talladega, Texas. And then here's the next kind of semi-big change, kind of similar to Darlington, but Watkins Glen gets moved up from where it normally is around the end of July, early August, and now it goes to the beginning, middle of May. This is the first change I actually really like because I think this is going to help NASCAR's road course fatigue problem. And what do I mean? I don't think NASCAR has a problem with too many road courses. I think the problem is they're not spread out properly. Think about it. Look at the schedule this year. You got COTA as the third race of the year, and then you don't have another road course until June for Mexico, which Mexico we already know isn't going to be on the schedule. But you got, a 3-4 month hiatus of road courses. Then you have, 3 road courses in the span of 5 to 6 weeks. Then we don't have another road course until the Roval. So it's not a road course fatigue issue. It's the fact that the road courses aren't spread out properly. And I think that Watkins Glen moving up in the schedule is going to help that balance with the road courses and where they're going to be spread out more properly instead of 1 here, 5 here, and then another one there. At least that's what I think is going to help fix it. Then we go to the first big change on the schedule, and that is the AllStar Race is now at Dover. This makes absolutely no sense for me for a multitude of reasons. Dover is a track, for example, that doesn't have lights. The AllStar Race typically runs at night. So you're really going to tell me that we're going to have an AllStar Race in the day? What are we doing? What are we doing? I want, at least me personally, I want my big races. The races that are supposed to matter. Daytona 500, Coke 600, Southern 500, All-Star Race, Championship Race. The night has just a different atmosphere. It has a different aura. When you're crossing the line to win the championship or you're crossing the line to win the Daytona 500, it's a bigger deal. It just feels, it has a different presence at night. And the All-Star Race has been at night for as long as I can remember. But now we're going to a track that doesn't have lights. And I know I'm just talking about it from an aura perspective, but that does matter. The aesthetic matters. And frankly, the aesthetic of an All-Star Race at Dover is just... I can't get behind it. And another thing I can't get behind is the fact that why don't we just go back to Charlotte? I mean, guys, Dover has not had a good race in who knows how long. This year's race was a dud. Last year's race was a dud. Dirty air at Dover is horrible. But I already know some people might say that, oh, Dover has multiple grooves, so at least there'll be, some passing here and there, hopefully. Not exactly. You see, the thing is with Dover is it's a track that needs a long run. Why? So the rubber gets built into the track and then those multiple grooves can form. You know what the All-Star Race is anything but? A long run. I guarantee that race will probably be, I'm just going to guesstimate around 200 to 250 laps. Because it takes, 23 seconds to get around that track for one lap? You really think that's enough time to get a long run going, knowing there's going to be stages, there's going to be segments, there's going to be more gimmicks in the All-Star Race, which I don't have a problem with. It's the All-Star Race. Have a little bit of fun with it. But for a track that needs long runs to get the rubber built in, you're not going to get that at Dover. So that, on top with a terrible aesthetic, because this is going to be a day race, because again, there's no lights at the track, this might be the worst decision that NASCAR has made on this schedule so far. This is honestly pretty close to as bad as when they made Texas the All-Star Race a couple years ago. At least Texas, they have lights, and you have the aesthetic of, under the lights and crowning your All-Star champion. Dover, you don't really have that. So, I mean, if I was giving out grades for major moves, this one is easily an F. Also, why are we going from Dover, Delaware to Charlotte when we could just stay at Charlotte? That's kind of the other appeal of the All-Star Race is the teams are at home. So why are you forcing the teams to go far away for a race that really doesn't matter? I don't know what to tell you. Coke 600, of course, right after. And then really there's not a lot of major changes here until we get to Sunday, June 21st, when we have the San Diego Street Course. Now, this has been confirmed for a while. We knew this was going to be around the time that the San Diego track was going to be. We all knew this was going to happen, so I'm not really going to talk too much about it because it's frankly old news. There's not much to dive into here. Sonoma, and then the next big one, Chicagoland is coming back. This is one that's been rumored for quite a while now, especially when it was announced that we will not be returning to the Chicago Street Race for 2026 and beyond. And NASCAR, wanting to stay in that Chicago market, they figured, well, we own Chicagoland. Why don't we just go there again? So it makes a lot of sense. And in theory, the racing should be better. Worn out surface, mile and a half, it plays into the next gen strengths, so it should be a pretty good race. My only criticism, and frankly, I know I'm going to be a little bit extra by saying this, but this is my biggest complaint about the schedule. It's not exactly going back to Chicagoland. It's where Chicagoland is on the schedule. And I'm about to go on my NASCAR crash out session right here because I have been clamoring for years now. Ever since Daytona got taken off the 4th of July, ever since Atlanta was repaved into a super speedway, why don't we move Atlanta to the 4th of July? Because it is literally the next race after. Literally, Atlanta or Echo Park, whatever you want to call it, is literally the next week after Chicagoland on July 12th. NASCAR, you killed the 4th of July weekend. Why don't you bring it back with Atlanta? To me, this signifies that NASCAR is just giving up on the 4th of July weekend because, I'm sorry, Chicago, Illinois, and especially Joliet, Illinois, does not scream 4th of July. But you know what does scream 4th of July? As close to Daytona as you can get? Atlanta. And what makes no sense is it is so easy. You just got to move the date 1 week earlier. I mean, guys, Atlanta was literally the week before the 4th of July this year. So now we put it the week after the 4th of July? What are we doing? It is literally, this is honestly the biggest missed layup. This is probably the easiest layup that NASCAR can have. You're not going to go back to Daytona for the 4th of July because the city doesn't want to go back there, and it really just honestly makes no sense. But you know what you can do? Go to Atlanta. It's the closest thing you're going to get. Atlanta 4th of July under the lights. It would be immaculate. It's the easiest layup NASCAR can make, and they just refuse to do it. Why, NASCAR? Why? Just move Atlanta to the 4th of July weekend. It's so easy. Okay, Atlanta ran over, for now at least. Another big change here, North Wilkesboro is going to get a points-paying race. It's basically swapping with Dover. Dover is getting the AllStar Race, and then North Wilkesboro is going to get Dover's points-paying race. And honestly, I don't think it's going to change much in terms of an on-track product, unless NASCAR drastically changes the next-gen car, which is fundamentally bad at short tracks. Well, Richmond was apparently pretty good last week, so maybe it will be much better this year. But either way, unless the racing really drastically improves, I don't think it's going to be that much of a difference in terms of an on-track product, though it is pretty cool to see that we are getting another short track as a points-paying race back on the schedule, because remember, we lost one this year when Richmond lost its date for Mexico City. So this is basically the de facto Richmond replacement for one of its dates in terms of how many short tracks we have on the schedule. The Brickyard 400 will have its 30th race the week after. Not much has changed there. And then we have our second off week of the season. And this has been something the industry has been clamoring for a very long time. Give us another off week. This is a grueling schedule for these guys. 38 out of the 52 weeks they are on the road. Sometimes they have to go out of the country. So the fact that they are getting another off week, and really right before the playoffs begin, when it's really crunch time, I like this move. Again, having a second off week I think is perfect. It is much needed for the NASCAR Cup Series especially. And then Iowa, Richmond, back-to-back short tracks, and then New Hampshire loses its playoff date. So the playoff, New Hampshire's return to the playoffs. It used to be in the playoffs for a lot of years. Then it got taken out. Now it's back in for this year, but it's really just a one-year stopgap. It comes out of the playoffs really to replace Homestead. So Homestead gets New Hampshire's playoff date. We'll talk about the schedule alignment for the playoffs in a bit, but Loudon will be the second to last race of the regular season, and of course Daytona will be the regular season finale. Now moving on to the playoff schedule, the round of 16, we're assuming it's the round of 16 because again, it is not confirmed what the playoff schedule will look like next year, or at least the playoff format will look like next year, but assuming that we are still going to have these eliminations, because it looks like that's what's going to be the case at least for next year, the round of 16 would be Southern 500, Gateway, and Bristol, pretty much what it is this year. And then the round of 12, not a lot of changes. You got Kansas as the opener, Las Vegas moves to the round of 12, and then the Charlotte Roval. So back-to-back mile and a halves, and then the Charlotte Roval, which is staying at least for another year. Then you got Phoenix, that moves out of the championship race and goes to the first race of the round of 8. That's pretty interesting. I thought that they would move that to the second to last race, the spot which it had for a very long time until, it got the finale. Talladega, and then Martinsville, and then of course we already know the championship race is at Homestead. So in terms of the playoff schedule, not a lot of changes. Really the big change is, again, Homestead going to the finale, and then Loudon being taken off of the playoff schedule, and then going back to the regular season. Maybe some more comments here. I don't love the idea of going all the way to New Hampshire and then going back down to Daytona. Some of the alignments on the schedule, I wish they were, a little more concise in terms of maybe stay in one area for a chunk of the season and then stay in another area for a chunk of the season. But I kind of get that in a way. You don't want to hold every race in the Southeast for one part of the schedule and then every race in the West for that part of the schedule, because then there's not as much incentive to go to all of these races if you can just pick and choose which one you want to go to. So I get it in that sense, but some of them I don't like for example, again, going to Virginia, then to New Hampshire, and then to Daytona. That just kind of makes no sense to me. As for my favorite move of the schedule, I'm biased. I live 45 minutes away from Homestead Miami Speedway, so the fact that my home track gets the championship race again, I know I'm biased, but pretty much this is a biased show anyway. But yeah, Homestead is the finale. Of course, that's my favorite part of the schedule. And then my least favorite part of the schedule, Dover has to be up there again as the AllStar Race. That's just going to be a snoozer. And the fact that NASCAR refuses to put Atlanta as the 4th of July. I might have to make a whole video on that, just why Atlanta should be the 4th of July weekend, because I have a lot to say about that, but that's my own little personal niche. That's my pet peeve of the schedule. But really, Dover being the All-Star Race is just, it's just no good. So, those are my thoughts on the 2026 schedule. What do you guys think about the schedule? Again, NASCAR hasn't officially dropped it yet, but reports are coming out. Of course, we have it here at the Daily Downforce. And again, I will link the article in the description below. But that's going to do it for me, folks. Please like this video and subscribe to the Daily Downforce YouTube channel. That helps me out a ton. Check out dailydownforce.com for all sorts of great content. Aside from this article, much more amazing content is over there. But that's going to do it for me. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I appreciate all of you, and we will see you in the next video.